it's really happening. There's a lot of office space. It's really affordable. And so like we had a townhouse on Capitol Hill that was just like a fraternity house. And it cost basically the same thing as this, and everyone has nice offices. So all right, I'll kick us off.
You need a radio check. We good.
We just go?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to Oversight Project Headquarters, OPHQ. Jeff and I are here with our new friend John Henry, and he's running for Congress in Tennessee 6. So over to you. Why are you doing it?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. First of all, it's grateful to be here. I'm pretty humbled. The second time we've taped in the studio, so it's a great thing. I'm running in Tennessee 6 because we need someone, our cut of cloth, right? 27-year Marine. We need average person stepping up who's been affected by so many changes that are going on right now in our society, immigration being one of those. So it's one of our top priorities in our campaign, and we're grateful to be able to talk about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kick it off. Tell me about your district. You've been there your whole life. How has it changed?
6th district. We have 19 counties. We're the most rural district in all of Tennessee. With those 19 counties, we go from the edge of Nashville all up to a very, very rural Scott County. There's a lot of things that have changed. When I left, agriculture was booming. Things were booming. NAFTA has changed a lot in our area with the factories and so forth being gone. So there's been a lot of change in the rural America in Tennessee where we live. And being from there, when I got out of the Marine Corps after 27 years, I noticed a lot of change, and I knew then we needed someone of the average cloth to be running for these seats.
What kind of industry left the area?
Yeah, good question. It's hard to really quantify all of those left. When 1994, when NAFTA literally took feet, we had a lot of textiles, so shirts, socks. We had a clock factory. I'm from a very small town of 9,000. We had an American-made clock factory in our town, and NAFTA came to town. Obviously, we all know those clocks are made in China today. Same thing with shirts. They're made in Vietnam. They just were all outsourced.
My hometown, Philadelphia, used to be a big textile capital too, so I'm familiar with the textile hollowing problem.
It was, and it affected people. People say, well, John, those are low-paying jobs. I'd much rather those that don't know much about those not say that, because they were jobs that these were people that were in their 50s and 60s, and the Social Security might not have made ends meet, so they worked. They were older people. They were the jobs that they had. So making Oshkosh overalls or Fruit of the Loom T-shirts or socks, that was what they did for a living. But there was also other industry there, that a boot factory. My wife lived in the county next to me in Trousdale County, the smallest county in Tennessee, made boots, Acme boots. I mean, you knew when people worked at Acme Boots because they drove it around in nicer cars. Same thing in Transformers. Another very rural county we have is Clay County. Clay County is very rural. They made the transformers on top of light poles. So those people drove brand new cars around. They got paid $19, $20 an hour in 1989, 1990. Those are the things that were outsourced that have really hurt rural America. Well, in my experience, that's why I'm running, is because others don't have that experience. They don't know what it was like to have a booming industry. Church pews full, streets full in these small little towns. And now there's a strong, linear line on the map of people leaving town to go to Nashville, Lebanon, Cookeville for jobs, because it's not a lot left local. That's why we're running, is because we bring this experience to the campaign, and we feel like we're the ones that mirror what's happened in our communities.
Let me get into the topic I think that most interested me about your race, is that you're drawing a bright line on the issue of immigration. You told me about kind of your justification for it, and the rule of law and your sense of things, how they ought to work. I was hoping you could share with the audience here what you shared with me.
Well, let's go back a little bit in history. We have to see our founding fathers, first of all. I mean, for them to be so astute to know that immigration, you must have strong borders around your country. Think about some of the things they'd read prior to that. I mean, we're going back from the beginning of his countries were established. They knew that armies could literally infiltrate a country, infiltrate a country, and then raise children up in that country and then overtake that whole country. They knew that. That's what they studied. They understood that. And so when you have a country that has no borders or has weak borders, then you let anything come in. And sadly, in today's world, That's not our culture. I mean, it can change an entire culture. And what we've seen over the last 4 years is that culture being changed on purpose. We believe all this was purposeful. The last 4 years of open borders, millions of people coming in, even my communities, you can see people come in and clearly you can delineate who's a citizen and who's not. And it changes. It changes what we do. We know that.
Do you think people are coming in organically, or do you think that there are groups that are sending them into places like Tennessee 6?
Good point. I think there's a coordinated effort. I do. I believe the opposite party of ours, the non-conservatives, what I like to call them, they are not conservative. They've sent them in to change the voting blocks. I do believe that. They say they're not, but we see it where we're at. Them still trying to. We have one of the most secure voting systems in Tennessee, but we can see how that can definitely change very fast. To your point, we think that's very important.
This is how it worked with Chinese immigration waves,
Yeah,
back
right.
in the day into the United States. It's why, take it from a documentary I watched on General Tso's chicken, but that's why each Chinese food restaurant has a different like number next to it. It's because in China, they organized where to send people who would run the restaurant, who would run the other thing, and they divided the US up into a grid. And so this isn't a conspiracy theory. There's actually like a strong historical foundation for how this has happened in previous immigration patterns. And with what happened in the Biden years, the auto pen years, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars and millions of people. That doesn't happen without organization and funding and nonprofits at the international, national, and then local level. And so I am sure without a shadow of a doubt to Jeff's question that many people in your district aren't there because they said, you know what? They pulled up the congressional map. I want to meet this John Henry guy. He'd be a good neighbor. That place is really tickling my fancy. I want to go there. No, not at all. It's the
I
Right.
think it's
no,
going to be well protected with the Marine we got here.
yes,
Right.
yes, they're coming for you.
Well, speaking of the Marine here, it's a national security issue, and I want the same thing I do with the farms today. We have to worry about national security in this issue.
Okay.
Now we talk about the indoctrination, the way people come in. Right now, we're looking at Sharia law hard in our district. Is it coming? I mean, people say no, not Tennessee. Absolutely in Tennessee. Those are things, national security issues we have to look at. I'm glad you brought up the immigration, the Chinese immigration. Everybody thinks it's South America, Mexico or where it may be, but it's not. It's all over the world, and we see that. And there's a playbook behind it. You just mentioned China. Who's using China's playbook right now? Right? We see that. We see that in the Muslim world, how just a little bit at a time, they're playing the long game. And as a national defense expert, it's important to me that we study that and be able to cut that off now where we're at. We don't wait 10, 20 years down the road to see what that can grow into. It can be pretty significant.
Oh yeah,
I think it's very important.
we're seeing it all over. I mean, we have a report that we just put out on Epic City down in Texas, and there's these huge compounds being built.
Yeah.
Now, you caught my attention. What are you? I'm not surprised, but what are you seeing on the ground in your district with Sharia law?
Well, sadly, I participated in 3 wars: Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freedom Price, and twice in Operation Enduring Freedom. Here's the thing: when you start seeing different elements of the same third world country that you fought in, you're thinking you have to stand back. It starts with that Sharia law, a very outward expression of their religion, of what they will and will not tolerate. Doesn't take a lot of study. And so I'm really astute to that. So I'm on a vigilant alert of that. When I go into Nashville, how many people do I see who are dressed like that, who act like that? The mosque you talked about, we had one of the largest mosques back in the 2000s in Tennessee. I don't know if you all knew that. It was huge. Texas is following in Tennessee in that because everybody has their freedom. I mean, there's hundreds of acres in this compound, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's something for people. I want to say it's outside Oak Ridge, but it's something for people to look and investigate. It's something I'm hyper vigilant of because again, I had to live among them, so it's a very important topic to me to make sure that we're aware of it. I think that's the problem in America is we're just not aware of what's going on right here on our nose.
So I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, but say you're successful, you're up here in Congress, like the Sharia Free Caucus and those initiatives, are those things that you'd be interested in being a part of?
I spoke to them last night. I'll go back to my constituency. We'll do our research. That's a specific representative I spoke to last night. And Sharia law we have to do whatever we can. If it means deporting people,
Speak my language.
hey, we can't just sit around idle. We had our conversation there about those jobs, and this was 1994. And look what's happened over 35 years. I mean, there's a life change that we have to adapt to. If we don't watch out, we'll be making a life change we won't like very well. To your point with Sharia law, it's important that we stay very vigilant. Everyone stay educated on this. I think our immigration numbers need to be very specific on that, very clear, because as I said, it's not just folks from Mexico and Argentina that came across that border. How many people came from places like Abu Dhabi and all those countries? That's just one I give, but there's so many of them. Iran. How many cells do we have in our country right now in a little backwoods town where they think they can hide? And those are things we have to be aware of.
Oh yeah.
And act on now. That's what I'm saying. Act on it.
Yep. Let me ask you this, and first let me say, if Chief Justice John Roberts is watching, the birthright citizenship should be rejected as a concept for America because it's being gamed, especially by the Chinese, with birth tourism and other forms of scams. But let's suppose that Supreme Court comes out the wrong door on that. There's power in Congress under the 14th Amendment to adopt laws to help correct the 14th Amendment and put it on the right footing. Would you want to lead a charge like that in order to get that issue right if you happen to be in Congress and that issue came up?
It's an issue that's very, very close to us as well. I'll have to educate myself on it. I have to get a group together that has been doing research on this and really get the facts on that. And I say that because in my experience training in Arizona, you go to Arizona emergency room, they're close to the border, and they're lined up on the wall are ladies who are expecting within hours. None of them are citizens. It's a system that's been played for a long time. And again, something we need to act on now because it can just continue. So if it's birthright citizenship, pulling birthright citizenship, making sure that, again, they do the same thing. They leave the country and they come back in legally. That's what we want.
In your counties of Tennessee, what are you seeing in the emergency rooms? Are you seeing any of the illegal, sort of surplus demand for services of those hospitals?
Constituents expressed to me how the emergency room is serving as the health care center. I know I use that in a very loose term, but I have people coming up to me saying, John, these emergency rooms have to stop being the little primary healthcare center for these illegal rooms because we can't turn them around. We're America. They come to the emergency room. We have to help them. And that's being taken advantage of. Even in our district, Little B, rural Tennessee, in 19 counties, people have addressed me on that, and they see it. So something again, and it goes back to what we said. Illegal immigration stresses every fabric of a locality, from healthcare to schools to jobs. We're seeing that. I mean, those millions of people, they had to come to Tennessee. They've affected us, and they'll continue to affect us. We believe that.
Yeah, it's impossible to miss. A little personal anecdote. We were blessed to have another child about a month ago. And one of the meetings at the hospital or, checkups or whatever, leading up to the delivery, we're in the waiting room. There's one other family in front of us. It's clearly an illegal alien family. They don't speak a lick of English. I mean, I didn't ask for their papers, but I had a pretty strong suspicion. And the pregnant individual couldn't have been older than 13 years old. And we're waiting behind this family, sitting in the waiting room. And I'm sitting there working on the Mass Deportation Coalition, all of our efforts. And it's just like, if it's that in your face, it is everywhere. It's every time you go anywhere in the medical industry or any sort of government services. And I think people are just sick of it. And to your other point about they're coming from everywhere, I think that's changed the debate quite a bit too. And that, like, for my entire life, the left like to racialize the argument against immigration. And it's impossible to do that when every last race is coming here in such degrees. Right now, it's just everyone in the entire world, Europe, every continent, every country. I think the Biden administration had 150 countries or something represented. I don't even know how many countries there are. Jeff probably does, but that's pretty much all of them. Maybe like there wasn't someone from Antarctica or something, but it's so in your face. I want to get to another point that we discussed last night, food security. And we were kind of linking this to immigration and how like foreign powers assert themselves through weaponized immigration. But can you tell us about food security?
It's one of the main things we talk about in America, not necessarily to the same level here, but right now all of our meats are being monopolized. I mean, that's a significant issue for us. We talked about dairies a while ago, how they've been conglomerated, and now they run 4 large processors run 85% of the meat market. All right, that's an issue with us. Just like I give the example of dairies, having that secure. All of our proteins must be from inside of America. And we talk about this, we talk about the Labels Act. It's called McCool. That is Mandatory Labels Act. It wasn't passed last year. It may not be passed again this year. It's something that we must look at very hard, because all the meats that we provide, pork, chicken, and beef, must come from inside of our nation. It can't come from China, who bought Smithfield Farms, to our conversation last night. Can't come from China, who bought Smithfield Farms and are now raising American hogs in China to eventually sell pork to us. That's a significant issue.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with their beef. Brazil, they control a lot of the beef in this country. They do. There's four large, like I said, packers, processors that do this. We must do what we can to demonopolize these organizations. And I know that's a tall order, but that's why I'm running, so we can make a change and make our food more secure than it is today.
And the security is not just in order to make sure that Americans pay reasonable prices, that they get, with the whole MAHA movement, right? There's a focus on local sourcing and the like, right? So those are two important benefits, but it's also a national security issue, right? I mean, did you work on any issues in terms of your service in the military that related to what happens if population doesn't have food security, John?
No, we did not. Not in mine. I was an engineer. We didn't necessarily attack that. We just see the residuals now when, say, for example, the ice storm that came through Nashville, all of a sudden the shelves are empty because we have to get meat from California or produce from California. It cuts those channels off. All that needs to be in a local area we just talked about earlier. And that's our issue, is to be able to make it affordable, but yet make it local. That's jobs
Mm-hmm.
we talk about. When we talk about illegal immigration, we talk about how many jobs we're losing to good paying jobs in the agriculture industry. So we believe that that'll also bring jobs back. I believe in Generation Z. I'm a big Generation Z fan. I believe with the right opportunities, they can help bring that food security back to our locations. They would be the ones opening up meat packing plants, or opening up types of, we talked about milk earlier, processes that would make that. And that's jobs. That's real jobs from people, young people that I know would want to do those jobs if they had the ability to do it.
So look, we've talked about food security now. We've talked about national security. We've talked about hospital emergency rooms. These are very, on the ground practical issues. But as Mike knows, I'm a theoretical kind of guy. So as I understand it, you have an important interest in enforcing the immigration laws because you believe in the rule of law as a general governing concept for America. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, sir, I do. I think we've seen the residuals from the last failed the auto pen, the 4 years of the auto pen, that we've really talking to national security individuals to know what's happening even on our southern borders. We continue to try to build that wall. There's holes in fences that we've been trying to close the gap in, where we still see the human smuggling. I mean, it goes on to this day. He says we're doing our best to fight it until this wall gets built. But even then, we have to work on completely eliminating any type of cartel activity on the borders, what's happening down there. That's the rule of law. Again, that must happen now as we continue to work toward that, funding that effort to make sure that we stop the cartel movement. I mean, as you all know, in poor Tennessee communities, we're devastated by drug use, where those drugs come from down from the southern border, from Mexico into the southern border. It's affecting our people, very poor people who sadly take the avenue of drug use, and they're dependent on that. It all comes from the illicit, the drugs that are coming pouring through our southern border. The rule of law must take effect, and it must be funded, which we're into a problem with that right now, to help stop that flow now. Any flow that's still coming of our drugs, we have to understand it affects rural America. It's not just these large cities. That's why I'm here to represent rural America and not shun them or turn a blind eye to them. That's very important to your point.
Mm-hmm. Let's have a little theoretical conversation. Because certainly your opponents are going to hit you with this. The left's going to hit
Yes.
you with this, especially if you speak out strongly in these issues. What do you say to the guy who's he's from Honduras? He grabbed his whole family, and he's like, well, Joe Biden basically invited me to come in here, and I happen to settle in rural Tennessee. How am I different than European immigrants. Why do you want to send me back home? What would you say to someone like that? What's the argument
I
to
mean,
present against it?
well, sir, to be honest with you, you have to take emotions out of it. Sadly, the law, that's why she has a blindfold, is that law should not be attached to emotions. Why? Why do they get to skip ahead of the line of someone who say is serving in the military? Why should they skip line? They don't skip line. We're just asking in a very organized manner, back to country of origin, come to the back of the line, come into our country. We're not anti-immigrant. I want you all to understand, and I think we're not anti-immigrant. We're pro-legal immigrants. That's important. The legal immigration system that was set so long ago needs to continually be enforced. So those people from the countries that you mentioned, great. We just need to reset prior to the Biden administration out and then come back in. It's a meritocracy, right? That's the way our country is built, not by skipping the line and coming in haphazardly through the porous borders that we saw during the Biden administration.
Let me jump on that one real quick
Okay.
because there's a lot of people who will say, yeah, illegal bad, legal always good. And I would counter that not all legal is good. And certainly like a static number of like 1 million plus is just too much. And so what are your views on, of course, legal is preferable to illegal, but in terms of legal unto itself, are the numbers too high? Are they too low? Should they be apportioned by needs on like an annual basis? What do you think the
The way I
solution is?
understand is they're set annually, right? We know what we can do.
Do we need a moratorium?
Oh, I think anytime we can gather more information. And the reason I say a moratorium or would advocate for a moratorium is look what it's doing to our school system right now. I mean, we're going to school systems and we have teachers that are overwhelmed. 3 or 4 students that can't speak English. Well, do I ignore them and teach the other 22? What we've got
In Fairfax County,
that's
then
right.
you got 25 languages. you gotta
Yes.
deal with.
So we've got a serious issue here. Now, again, if you take the motion out, they need to go out and then they can come back in and apply just like everyone else. But it's causing such a housing strain right now, our education strain. You think of anything, our water supply, you all may not be dealing with the water supply, but in rural Tennessee, there's some counties that if we have a drought, they have to bring water in on tanks on the back of wagons. That happens today. Now, if you infuse 10 million people into our country, what's that do to
Oh, yeah.
small communities as well? So our utilities, our sewage, our housing, we just mentioned that. We've got to really, to your point, a moratorium will make it very clear. What are the definitive numbers? As you just said, data has no emotions either. And we need data. We need strong data. It will prove why the number that you're talking about is valid.
Oh, yeah.
If you exceed that number, our schools and eventually we know our children 10, 20 years down the road will be affected by us not taking action now. I believe that.
Right. There needs to be time for this country to restore its national identity, commonality, language, culture, shared purpose. That's clearly lost right now. I don't think anyone objects to this, the fact that this is not a united country and its people. And a moratorium would allow this country the time to begin that healing process. But to Jeff's point earlier about schools, in Fairfax County in particular, which is a county out here in Virginia, when they get too many, more than 4 illegals in your classroom, here's what they do. And I know this because they did this to my elementary school. It becomes a Spanish immersion school. They turn the bug into the feature of it. And they have a gringo like me trying to speak Spanish in the 2nd grade. It didn't work too well. I'll tell you that though.
I will say though, I'm glad one word you mentioned there so important, our culture, our American cultures, our freedoms, being able to express ourselves. What we've done is we've demonized free speech and we've used it as a weapon another. We take that in the Sharia law, people.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's freedom of religion. And the same thing we do with our illegal immigration. So we need the moratorium. I sure appreciate you bringing that up. That's so important. Data would drive that. Data would drive everything we're in this conversation we're talking about now, which would take the emotion out. And when we need to do that to restore our American culture, it will take that. It will require that.
I think, well, so the educational system has
Yes.
been taken over,
Yes.
right, by these teachers unions, by the left in many ways. But if people learned real history, they would be dispelled. This notion would be dispelled of Americans just kind of developed a consciousness on 1776 with the Declaration of Independence, and here we are, in the 250th year after that, right? No, the American culture developed gradually from the time of the
Yes.
colonies being set up until it advanced to the point where people were ready for Lexington and Concord and for 1776. And it's that culture that's threatened by flinging the doors wide open and the invasion we had under the Biden administration.
Yes, sir. I think of, we just laughed. Thomas Jefferson knew, right? You just can't have open borders. And the comment he was, if I take tens of thousands of Americans and drop them off in France, this is obviously after our revolution. If I drop tens of thousands of Americans off in France, how you think they'd think about that? Because he knew you can literally take an entire country over like that.
Well, you mentioned the dairy, they would have had a cow, right? Like that's what would have happened. But now, we got the French, they welcome them in. They're seeing all the dysfunctionality that comes from that. I don't think you want Tennessee to become France right now. Am I
No,
right?
our lessons learned are right in front of us. If we don't learn from Europe right now, especially it goes back to our Sharia law conversation, we're going to be too reactive at the point, right? America should not be a reactive country. We
Right.
have the abilities. To your point about the moratorium, all the numbers are there. If we would just come together, bring that out and show it, don't demonize people for the open, true facts that are really there. That's important. And yeah, we definitely don't want to France.
No. Well, you're speaking my language, sir. This has been a fascinating conversation. Why don't you close it out? Give us your sales pitch to the people back home, and then also the people in DC who might be watching this.
I appreciate it. So the three things we talk about, and because I've lived it in my experience in leadership, I am the leader in the 6th district who's running for U.S. Congress. We talk about agriculture, sustainable, secure agriculture in all small pockets of America, not just large cities, but rural America. Second thing we talk about is industry. Just like President Trump and his agenda is bringing businesses back from overseas, we think we need to do that on a micro level, down in the small towns of Tennessee, which I think is a very good commonplace of what you'll see across this nation. And the third thing we talk about are education. We have to do something now. I'm afraid that we're waiting too late. We must redevelop our curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade now. You all know curriculum comes from many different areas, books, the internet, so many different areas. All textbooks written, published in America. All our meats that we have to sustain ourselves inside of America. Anything that we have to have in America to sustain us needs to be made in America. We have to go back to that. And that'll also restore our culture in America.
That's right. Self-sufficiency shouldn't just be a personal goal, but a national goal.
Amen, brother.
Thanks for coming on. Best of luck to you.
Appreciate you very much,
Yep.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very
Yes.
much. Appreciate this.
Cool. That was fun. Anything you want to redo or take another swing at? I thought it was great.
I mean,